right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about The First Omen, the new prequel to The Omen, which is amazingly great. Who would have thought that a legacy prequel to The Omen would turn out well? But this one is one of the year's best horror movies, and I'm excited to talk about it. I've got Scott Drebit from Daily Dead and author of A Cut Below, a celebration of B horror movies, 1950s to 1980s. Joining me for this one, and Scott's got a lot to get into with The First Omen, and we'll talk about his book after we get done with The First Omen as well. So that's coming up here in a minute. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on social media at PiecingPod, and don't forget to join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. We've got a great little community of movie lovers in there, and you should definitely join. And I keep it closed, so that way we keep out all the riffraff of internet monsters, just cool people who want to have great conversations about movies. So come join, I'll let you in, and then if you're not cool, I kick you out. But yeah, come join us. And with that said, let's get on to this conversation about The First Omen. All right, we are going to get into The First Omen, and joining me, we've got Scott Drebit. How's it going, Scott?
It is going very well, David. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. You know, when we were first talking about getting you on the podcast, and you had mentioned this movie, hopefully I'm not like right away stepping on any puzzle pieces here, but I think we were like just in the midst of the Exorcist reboot, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if this one's going to turn out so well, but hey, I'm down. Why not? It's a big movie. It's coming, and we'll see. And thankfully, I liked it a lot.
I enjoyed it very much. I'll put it this way. I'm glad we're discussing The First Omen and not The Exorcist Believer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'll get into the movie here in a minute, but first, it is your first time on the show. Tell my guests a little bit about you and your book and what you do.
Well, currently what I do when I'm not writing is a stay-at-home granddad. I look after my grandkids, and that is absolutely horrifyingly exhausting, slash rewarding, slash exhausting again.
Sure.
Yeah, so as far as, writing horror, I've been doing that for about close to 10 years now. I started with Daily Dead in 2015, and writing there, I was looking to just get into, I wanted to write a column on old horror movies, or older horror movies, as it were. I'm an old man, so when I say older and old, the calibration may be different to someone in their 20s, but I wanted to do a column to give the new generation, or people who are coming into horror new, not necessarily younger people, but people of an older generation too, who are just discovering it for the first time, some films that maybe aren't going to be necessarily the ones first discussed, as it were. So the column I called Drive-In Dust-Offs, and that became a weekly column with Daily Dead from 2015. The idea for the book, A Cut Below, a celebration of B horror movies, 1950s to 1980s, grew from that project, and here we are.
Absolutely. And it's funny with horror, like, whether it's, a reboot, reimagining, prequel, sequel, whatever, or just an original idea, no genre wears its influences on its sleeve more than horror. And so, like, some of the movies that you bring up in the book are, like, exactly the things that are inspiring every one of the movies we end up covering on this show.
There's definitely some, it's really one of my favorite subtopics in horror is religious batshittery.
Yeah,
it's always delightful if it's done, if they take it where you'd like it to go,
Yeah.
It's a blast. I like nothing more, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of which, I feel like before we get to your first puzzle piece, we should kind of just throw out there in the ether this coming out a week after Immaculate, the Sydney Sweeney nun gets pregnant and may be the spawn
Yeah,
of whatever horror movie, which, by the
yeah.
way, I loved. And
It's the
it's
same plot.
yeah, it's crazy that these two movies came out, and we've had examples of this in the past. There's always, like the Deep Impact and whatever the other one was, and like,
Volcano. Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
Deep Impact and
What was?
Volcano was with Dante's Peak.
Yes, yes,
Deep
yes. There you go.
Impact was with
Was it Armageddon? Was the same time? Was that what it was?
oh,
Maybe.
absolutely
Yeah.
Armageddon. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's examples of that throughout movie history, but yeah, just a wild thing. 2 weeks in a row, and both really good and similar, but different enough that I think they
Oh,
stand on
very
their own
different.
feet. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh no, the plots are similar, but the I don't think I enjoyed Immaculate maybe as much as you did, although I did like it.
Hmm.
I thought, and again, they are different movies, and I know a lot of people are very fond of Immaculate. I thought my problem with Immaculate was I thought it should have gone farther,
Yeah, even more crazy.
more crazy.
Yeah.
As a long time horror enthusiast, when I was hearing people talk about the last half hour of this movie is just like bonkers insane, I was, like Charlie Brown approaching Lucy with the football. I was
Sure.
ready to go as I fall for it every time, but I enjoyed it, and I actually looking forward to watching it again.
Hmm.
I just personally found that they underplayed, if anything, with that premise. Whereas what I enjoyed about the First Omen, especially, was Arkasha Stevenson.
Yeah.
That's the name of the director, I believe.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, her stuff on Butcher's Block on Sweet Marie. Why am I blanking out? Channel Zero. My apologies. The
Mm.
season Butcher's Block. She directed all the episodes for that for season 3 of Channel Zero, and just a fabulous eye. And I'm fine with a horror story not relying or on visuals or offering up sumptuous visuals if it's still got a great story, great performances, etc.
Yeah.
Well, First Omen has that, plus it has like really great visuals, some shots that I'll be remembering a long, long time, right from the opening scene where we get that surprise cameo by
Yeah.
Charles Dance.
Yeah.
Right from then, I'm like, oh, okay. I was already
Yeah.
impressed.
We're doing
Just
it
in
right.
those, yeah, just in those opening moments, I was already impressed. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place. Let's start jumping in. What do you have for your first puzzle piece?
Well, what is really great about this movie, I think, is it's not the. I don't necessarily think that the homages point at themselves and say, "Look at me, look at me." Well,
Mhm.
some of them do, but some of them don't. Some are more subtle and whatnot. And there's like a ton for horror fans. There's lots of stuff. But my first one right off the bat is there's a set piece where the nuns get in the middle of there's a riot
Mhm.
happening in Rome, and our lead, she ends up having this moment that is this demonic possession moment or experience that is directly from Possession,
Yes.
the movie Possession, where Isabella Adjani has that subway tunnel meltdown, and it's beautifully done because it pays tribute to it, but it doesn't like point at it, and it's not like a copy,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you get the flavor of it and the spirit of it. And as a horror fan, if you've seen that film, that one checks off an interesting, that's a film that never gets referenced
Yeah. Yeah.
in anything ever. I know a lot of people are really fond of that, but that was the kind of like a standalone set piece moment. I thought that
Yeah.
was a nice tribute.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that one as well. I think it's a really great version of trying to pay tribute to something that horror fans are going to pick out, but not overdoing it because like that could have been very like eye rolly in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think she really nails it. And Nell Tiger Free, I haven't seen her in much else other than this movie. And like, I mean, she really does a great job of being this character who's going through so much and has so much on her shoulders and handles it in a way that it really feels very movie star like.
Yeah, my former managing editor at Daily Dead, Heather Wixon, who has packed it in from the business directly. She said, check out Servant,
Yeah.
which I believe is an Apple Plus show.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be terrific, I believe, and I believe that's M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
That's his baby.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be amazing in that. I haven't seen it myself, so again, like yourself, this is like my first experience with her, and she's terrific. I
Yeah.
mean, she's fantastic. You are completely along with her on this ride. You know,
Yeah.
she's great.
100%. Well, I'm going to go to a piece here. You just were talking about the riot that this is all taking place during, and
Mm,
the riot, like setting this backdrop for the events of the movie, but not actually being the main focus of anything. I was
yeah.
thinking of Dog Day Afternoon, 1975, just this movie that, is basically about what's happening inside this bank with Al Pacino's character and his relations to everybody in there, to the police, to everything going on. But outside, knowing that there is just like a ticking time bomb out there, and knowing that that adds this layer of tension, like a powder keg of the whole situation. And we don't know with the First Omen how much all of these riots out in the streets are going to, play into the actual plot, or if it's just going to be, just an added layer of tension. And
Hmm,
I
hmm.
think I think it's a really cool little thing that kind of like lights a little spark underneath everything else that's going on.
Sure. And just to throw another puzzle piece on top of that puzzle piece, the Suspiria remake
Mm-hmm.
again has that backdrop of the whole East and West Germany backdrop as its setting along the wall. And again, does it play a very important part? Well, it certainly sets the mood and the flavor
Right.
of what you're going to be seeing. And I think it's kind of the same thing there. There's that, like you said, there's that element of danger, and is it going to play a bigger part in everything? So it's I think it's well done. Again, I think that's just good. I think it's just good writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what do you got next?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think this is cheating necessarily, but let's talk about 1976's The Omen,
It's gotta be.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which yes, this is a prequel to directly. There's been some altered business, and that's fine. But anyway, the original, we can get to that, and I'm sure we will. But the original Omen, I really like her direction in this because, again, it takes place, it starts off 5 years, 71, before we're introduced in the original film in 76, is
Hmm.
when we're introduced to Damien. Um, but that was supposed to be 1971, which is where we're starting off with the first Omen. And she just gets everything right about the look. Yeah, I mean, it even looks like a Richard Donner film.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
From the trailer, I knew that the look was going to probably be right because the
yeah,
trailer looked right. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. So, and again, that can sometimes be done as like some kind of hokey thing,
Hmm.
and it's not here. It's not. There's no like, you're not getting cigarette burns on the footage or anything like that. It just, it again, it's effective at capturing the mood, specifically, I think, of the original Omen, that sense of, that kind of looming sense of 70 70s nihilism that is so near and dear to my heart, being a 70s kid. You didn't realize how grim was stuff was when you're
I'm, sh-
watching it. You
I'm
look
sure.
back at it now and you go, sweet Jesus, some of this stuff was pretty dark. Especially if you're watching it at that age, which, I was. So, but yeah, there are direct homages to the original film in the First Omen. We get the "It's All for You"
Sure, sure.
uh, with the jump, with bonus fire added.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're we're in a new
This
age. Things are much more violent now. So
this time, and but they also, I think, they play with it. Um, a little bit as well in some instances that I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but there's little stuff where if you're aware of the original movie, then watching the First Omen, you know what's going to be coming down the line for certain people. Like it took me a couple minutes to figure out that Father Brennan was the Father Brennan, like an idiot I am, of the original Omen movie, right? Like it
sure.
took me like, come on, man, get
Yeah.
it together. Um, but yeah, I think what it does most effectively capture and bring over in this movie from the original that was necessary uh, for it to work, or to work better, I guess, is it
Yeah.
does have that real feel of a 70s film. And I think you have to have that sensibility of it for it to kind of tie into the events of the first movie. And I think it does a good job of capturing the Omen feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the look is a big part of it. I also think the score is a big part of it, which
Yeah.
definitely, pays a lot of tribute to the original Goldsmith score. And yeah, this composer Mark Corvin, I'm not familiar with his other work, but does a great job of like capturing that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I could have used a few more hundred, Ave Santini or Satanis
Yeah.
on the
It was fun.
soundtrack.
I watched the original for the first time in like 20, 30 years or something last week, like right before going to see this. And I was watching it with the subtitles on, as I watch everything when I'm at home.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, every one of those has a subtitle, which I thought was kind of funny, but but we're kind of in the 70s here with these last few puzzle pieces, so I might as well just stick in the 70s with my next one, also
Yeah.
1975 actually. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. As far as like this kind of psych ward feel of this convent, and all these nuns are living amongst people with varying personalities, from the crazy to the helpful to the all these ingredients that again, there's no telling at any point who is going to be violent, who can be trusted, who can't be trusted, who wants what out of whoever. Everybody is just kind of out for each other, but out for themselves, and you really just don't know at any given point. And that just adds to the tension of also knowing, like, oh, hey, actually, there's also like demonic possession and stuff like that gonna happen too. So,
It is a very the and I think it's not important, but it's such a great texture to have this because the film really does take its time in giving us a lot of characters and spending time with them. Like most of the nuns get some really great lines in.
mm-hmm.
They're fleshed out.
Yep.
You're not getting some cookie cutter. You have a scowling like bad nun. There, I was surprised. I was expecting nuns with rulers, kind of. But no, these are real people, and it kind of makes the stakes feel a little fresher.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and again, that's superb writing there, and great performances from this ensemble.
Yeah, absolutely. And not that they were thinking of each other, but again, not to bring up Immaculate again, but like totally different in terms of like, evil nuns categories of characteristics. So, it makes them much better companion pieces in a way where you're getting different kinds of people at that convent.
Oh yeah.
But what do you got for your next piece?
Well, I think it can't. The Omen was your Hollywood version of religious devil-handedness.
Hmm.
Uh, I think we need to give a shout out because I think there's a large puzzle piece to head overseas to our Italian mates, our Spanish mates who have always, uh, long before Hollywood put the Catholic Church on blast.
Mm,
The Other Hell, which I just watched a couple years ago. That's great. Has great nunnery
yeah.
business, and they take the sacredness out of that religion, which just thrills me to no end.
Yes.
Um, and the piousness and the yeah, it's just I love all that stuff because they can get a little transgressive, which for a new generation we're getting to see with, like you said, in a 2 week span, Immaculate and the First Omen. And I don't think we would necessarily be talking about them in the same breath, but it literally is two sides of the same coin story wise,
Yeah.
where one is you're birthing a Jesus, and the other you're birthing an Antichrist.
Absolutely.
Maybe there should be a crossover, Immaculate versus
That's where
the
we are with
First
Hollywood
Omen.
now. So yeah, for sure. I haven't seen The Other Hell, but I do. One thing that I love about this movie, The First Omen, is that the reason for all this happening is people. And like I
Yeah,
love that they are taking all of this, would be good stuff and just making awfulness out of it. And I think the reasoning for why they're doing it is really kind of clever. And like, usually when you hear prequel, did we really need to know, how Damien was brought about? Like, do we need to know all this stuff? And
yeah,
that's always the big question. But I think they came up with a pretty damn good answer.
yeah. It's only in the delivery system of such that there's kind of a glitch. But yeah, I actually really liked the idea of that. Like you said, I think it's very clever. I think, and it just opens it up for so many things that could have happened if this had performed at the box office this past
Yeah.
weekend. But I'm not sure if we're going to get any more. I'm not sure if we're going to get the First Omen 2
Mm.
Omens or whatever they would have called the second Omen.
Yeah.
Um, but the what they've come up with, I thought was, like you said, just very clever. And like you said, it's people. It's people that is the downfall. There ain't going to be no Antichrist if the Catholic Church hadn't said, well, we need people to be afraid of something so they
Yes.
come back to the church.
Exactly. I love that. That's just it's a great little, piece of storytelling. I think that's really great.
It is. It's clever, and it's funny as hell
Yeah.
to me, because how the hell would they think that's, and who's your savior? Like,
People are so stupid.
oh, I love it. I
Yep, yep.
absolutely love it. And that's what I mean. Like, that's the kind of, like, if you're going to tell a story like this, please go all the way.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like, you're already there with the premise.
yeah.
What's
Absolutely,
stopping you? Keep going,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I will go with I'm going to combine a couple things because they're both from director Fede Alvarez, who is going to be doing a new Alien this summer. We'll see how
Yeah,
that turns
yeah.
out. But he did the Evil Dead remake, which was much better than it had any right to be, and
Absolutely.
Don't Breathe, which is a really solid, like tense little thriller. Both movies that I think feel in step with the first Omen because of just the gnarly violence of them. Like, there are
Mm,
movies that are just like kind of mean to their protagonist, and
yeah.
they have to go through so much shit. And this director, she sets up this character for just the worst possible time, you know? And that's something that Fede Alvarez loves to do to his characters. And so that makes me hopeful for this new Alien movie. But certainly it works really well in those two movies, the Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's, and again, that's all coming back from Sam Raimi himself, right? Look
Mm-hmm.
what he used to put poor Bruce Campbell through, or
Yep.
any character in a Sam Raimi horror movie. Things he makes them suffer with a big giant smile on his face, and this movie does. Listen, if you're a horror fan, uh, and it's done really well to watch someone suffer as our heroine does here is in a sense exhilarating because you know she's probably going to make it out okay. But when the terrible things that happen are done so well,
Yeah.
you can't help but feel sorry for her while at the same time being exhilarated by what you're seeing on screen because it's pretty incredible. Like it's what a wonderful time to be a new horror fan. Um, I can't imagine sitting down. You haven't even watched the original Omen yet, and you're deciding to get into it. So, and you're just starting to follow horror, and you start with this movie. Well, that's a pretty good start,
Yeah.
if you ask me, to your horror education. And it's nice that there's good stuff in the theaters right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been having it like I was never really the biggest horror guy aside from like comedy horror, like I'm a big comedy horror guy, but the last few years though, they keep creeping into my top 10s like every year the last few years,
Yeah,
all these
yeah,
really great horror movies. So,
yeah.
we're definitely in a good time for that for sure.
You know it.
So, what do you got for your next piece?
Well, I would be remiss if we didn't throw in a little Rosemary into our
Sure.
stew.
Mhm.
And again ties into Alien, right? It's the fear of motherhood, while Alien ties in specifically to men's fear of giving birth. But Rosemary's Baby certainly is the first movie that pops in my mind when I think of what's in the belly.
Mhm.
Um and the mother's anxiety, and what I really like about this movie is there's like no there's no build up, like it's insta baby, it's add water and add jackal and away you go. It like happens like this, which is I think is the way that it should happen,
Mhm. Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. We're in the world of
But
supernatural, so why not, right?
yeah, but Rosemary, and I think this captures that fear of that happening. We get lots of shots of POVs of her with people standing over her in various states of different dress, religious uh, iconography.
Mhm.
It reminds me a lot of Rosemary in its intention too. Even though they're bringing in the Antichrist for different reasons than Rosemary's friends are bringing in the Antichrist to rule the world. The Catholic Church wants to bring in the Antichrist as a fall guy,
Yeah.
I guess,
That sounds about
for all
right.
the shit in the world.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. No, for sure. I love in both movies that like there's such a vast like conspiracy of people who are in on this whole thing and that are all working together to bring about this baby, and it's like really none of those people slip up at any given point. It's like quite a big plan to have to pull off, you know?
There's a lot of moving parts. A
Yeah.
lot of moving parts, absolutely. Which kind of ties into my next one, which would definitely be, I was just thinking of this before we came on, which is movies like The Sentinel,
Mm,
etc., that really lean into the kooky bananas nature of the Catholic Church.
mm.
Um, like you said, conspiracies. No one hides more things for real
Yeah.
in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So you really have to pump it up when you make a movie about them to get the same point across, because if you just say they're trying to hide abuse, well, that's really not far-fetched at all.
Sure.
You need to make it there you're building an antichrist.
Yeah.
Then, and it still sounds plausible.
Yes, absolutely.
But the whole and this one has some really great baddies, as it were, within the Catholic Church. So wonderful to see, Bill
Nighy.
Bill Nighy, thank you, playing a charming. I mean, he's a baddie if you've watched any number of movies ever in your life. He's going to be the baddie, and that's
Sure.
fine. Just like she's actually going to be the one giving birth. That too. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come
There's
on, folks.
No question. No question.
No, there's no question.
The only
Those
thing
are
I
not
wasn't
spoilers.
no, not at all. The only thing I wasn't sure of was where the friend was going to come into play. The friend that she ends up going out and partying with, which, by the way, is a really great sequence and like totally not something I expected to see in this movie. But her like almost, and I didn't really come up with a good puzzle piece for that, but like just to speak on it for a second, her leaving the church and going out in Italy and kind of finding herself and like starting to experiment, and that whole sequence is great and just kind of shows that she's kind of on the edge of all this, to begin with. She just doesn't realize it. But that friend, I didn't really know, is she going to be like straight up bad? Is she going to be like not knowing what's going on? Like, where is that friend heading with all of this?
Yeah. And of course, it's revealed that she is, of course, in on it, which again, plays back to that great Rosemary's Baby paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
Who's my friend? Who's not my friend? Who can I trust? Who can I not trust? Well, they're nuns. You're supposed to be able to trust all of them, would be my guess.
Ideally.
But ideally, same with the cardinal. Well, the cardinal, that's as close to, for a lot of people, that's as close to God as you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But it, again, nothing is played over the top. It's played straight, but the events themselves are so ridiculous. I mean, unless you're the kind of person who takes that kind of business seriously, then hats off to you, and you're definitely not going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah. Right.
For someone like myself who revels in this kind of religious bullshit, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you 100%. I'll go to my last puzzle piece, which I'm going with Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island, as far as a character who's brought into this place under this pretense of like, oh, I'm going to be this authority figure. I'm helping the people that are in charge, and eventually finding out, oh, they're there for a whole other reason. And of course, it's a little different with Shutter Island because this person's nuts. But, with this movie, it's this person they already knew has, the signs of being the person who would be able to bring about this Antichrist. And so that's the whole reason they brought her there. And she thinks she's there to learn and become a nun and, help people and do the whole journey. But really, she's just there as a pawn in the whole overall game.
Very well. I would agree with that 100%. I haven't seen Shutter Island in forever, but yeah, that's totally a vibe. A lot of this stuff is, vibe, as opposed to pinpointing a specific, frame by frame kind of thing. And I think, again, that's just a credit to the director, because she's managed to make a lot of her own indelible images from some iconic starting points.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, do you have any other pieces you wanted to bring up?
I don't think I have any other pieces.
Perfect.
No.
I think we got a lot of good ones here. I'll read down the list and then we'll get into some closing thoughts here on the First Omen. But we talked about Possession, Dog Day Afternoon, Suspiria, The Omen, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Other Hell, The Evil Dead Remake and Don't Breathe, Rosemary's Baby, The Sentinel, and Shutter Island. And yeah, I mean, I think one thing, and again, we kind of saw this from the trailer, but like she's really going for the 70s with this, and I'm curious to see what Arkasha Stevenson does like after this, like if she's able to continue having that, because not a lot of directors are able to really pull that off nowadays. Like it always comes off as like an emulation, but this really actually feels like it.
Yeah, if there's justice and she gets another chance like all the boys get,
Yeah, sure.
uh, right? God, I'm excited as to whatever she does next because I love everything about her directing.
Hmm.
Just everything. This movie is a real, except for I did have a little bit of an issue, of course, with the whole
Mm.
Jackal v. Jackal plot, uh,
Yeah.
as it were. But other than that, up until that very uh, ending, she's a terrific director.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen Channel Zero at all, if you have a chance to see it, she directed the entire third season. Rutger Hauer's in it, called Butcher's Block. It's disgusting and beautiful, and it's really good. Yeah, she's terrific.
I gotta watch that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely want to see more from her. I will say the one thing I didn't like about the movie is, speaking of the ending, is the very ending that felt kind of like an MCU ending of like, them sitting in a cabin waiting for the sequel, kind of,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the Ralph Ineson line, "Oh, and his name is Damien." Like,
We know his name. Well, like
yep,
we know that.
we
We
don't
knew
need
that.
that.
Yeah, we knew that as soon as you took him.
Yes.
Well, you want to throw in an extra puzzle piece? Let's go Star Wars then,
Yeah,
with
sure.
Luke and Leia. Okay.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. More 70s for our list. Why not?
Right
Let's do
there
it.
we go.
Let's do it. Well, I think that wraps up the First Omen pretty well. Let's talk a little bit more about your book before you get going here.
Okay,
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a few questions about it. Well,
please.
first of all, tell people a little about the setup of the book, because I think that's really interesting. Breaking down, it's like 60 films broken down into 12 kind of
Yes.
themes. Tell them about the themes.
Yes. So you are right. 60 films between the 50s and the 80s, except for one. But whatever, as I said, it's my book. I can put one, whatever the hell
Why
I
not?
want. Why not, eh? So yeah, so I 60 films that I broke down into 12, as I call them, festivals.
Hmm.
In keeping with the celebratory nature of the subtitle, with celebration in it, I wanted to keep it light and festive. I also wanted to put together, um, as if you would, dusk till dawn viewing
Mm.
suggestions for people, and kind of see these films in a different light. One of the greatest things about being a horror fan is seeing the connections between different horror movies
Yeah,
or
yeah,
different subgenres, and or the same subgenre but in different decades, and
sure.
how are they different or how are they similar. Endlessly nerdy horror stuff that I've just always been into ever since I was a kid. I always the kid who always had to read the reviews
Hmm.
in any magazine first. I just love opinions.
Yeah.
Always have. And so I decided to make this book where we have some fun ideas for people, and hopefully maybe pass along a little knowledge and some little tidbits along the way as well for those who've been been around horror for a while. Hopefully it works for them too. So
Right on, right on. With the set amount of movies per festival, were there any like major favorites that you just like had to stop yourself? You had to cut from the book.
no.
Hmm.
And again, one of the great things about doing the book was it was a chance for me to put in some of my favorite writing
Yeah.
that I've done. So again, I wanted it to be a mixture of some a little well more known and some that are maybe a couple that are completely obscure, and the
Mm.
rest are kind of in the middle. If you're a person new coming to horror, there's a lot of different directions that this book can take you into, you know, a lot of different categories. And I think we've only touched the tip of the iceberg as to what different subcategories we can come to. But my approach to it was to keep it light and fun. It's not, there are a lot of like terrific deep dive analysis books on horror out there, and I
Hmm.
recommend you check those out. This one is a little bit of a lighter touch, but I hope just as entertaining.
Right on. And something you just said there is actually something else that I wanted to ask you about. With regards to the specific categories, if you were to get a chance to write another book like this, would you prefer to
Yes.
do more categories from the 50s to 80s, or would you prefer to maybe go the 80s on or something like that for another section?
No, I couldn't see myself. I don't think I'd want to go on
Hmm.
uh, to another section just because I like the idea of sharing older
Yeah,
films with people and
they're
talking
the
about older
classics.
films.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, old. Some would
Sure.
disagree on the term classic, and that's what's great about horror as well. My classic is my treasure is not necessarily someone's treasure. It may be their trash,
Oh,
and
yeah.
vice versa. But it's all the same to me. It's all horror. Whether I like it specifically or not, I know there's someone who digs it. So I want it to be a cross section of films that I either specifically just really loved writing about them and were personal favorites, as you said,
Hmm.
or they were ones I just thought, hey, I'd like more people to know about this.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's just really cool, the whole setup of it all. Are you working on anything else right now? Or do you have ideas for future projects like this?
Well, I mean, if the sales of a cut below went through the roof and someone made me an offer to do another book,
Hmm.
I would love to do a Son of a Cut Below, but it's a
Nice.
sequel, right? So you got to make it twice as big. So I'd probably have to do 120 movies,
Ooh, yeah. There's enough out
and
there.
that I haven't. No, yeah, that I haven't written about before because I'd want to go 100% new.
Nice.
So yeah, that could take a while. In the meantime, I have some fiction that I'm giving a go at, and I'm
Nice.
just really enjoying talking to people about a cut below and having a gas, talking about it, and getting to go on like cool shows like this where I've never been on a format like this before, and it's a real breath of fresh air and keeps the guest invested.
Yeah.
You got to pay
Right on.
attention.
Yeah, you do. We got a whole thing going
I'm
here.
sweating over here, man. I'm
Well,
telling
I did make him turn his fan off before we started, but Scott, tell people where they could find the book and where they could find you.
The book can be through McFarlane Publishing. That's a cut below, a celebration of B horror movies, 1950s to 1980s. Through McFarlane Publishing, you can get it through them or wherever you get your fine books from. And me, you can find over on Blue Sky under Scott Drebit. Funnily enough, you can find me at the Rundown Strip Mall, formerly known as Twitter,
Mm,
at Phantasm 2, occasionally. And then I'm on Insta. I'm on doing the Insta. I'm doing the talk,
nice.
the book talk. I don't know. I'm scared, David. I don't know what it is, and it frightens me personally. But
Yeah.
I was told I should do it, so I'm trying, man. I'm
Yeah.
trying.
Trust me, I hear you. I'm trying to do more on that too, and it's a whole new layer. But we got to do what we got to do, right?
We got to do it, man. Got to
Yep.
do it, and happy to do it. This is
Yes.
not it's kind of a dream for me to actually write a book and have it published and get to talk to people about it.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's cool stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm an
Absolutely.
absolutely lucky guy, and thank you so much again for having me. This was really great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll get you back again sometime.
Anytime you want me, I'm there.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about the First Omen. Thanks to Scott Drebit for joining me on that one, and thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, make sure you're subscribed. We got a lot of episodes on the way, and you don't want to miss any of them. You could subscribe wherever you're listening right now, and we're on all the major podcast apps. And while you're at it, maybe drop us a little 5-star rating and review. It helps make sure that the show gets seen by more people, and then we get to keep doing cool things and covering lots of movies and the live shows and all the things that I do. So drop that 5-star rating. It is much appreciated. You could also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. Don't forget, we do have a Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and from my music career. There's already a bunch of early access Piecing It Together episodes on there. Also, I've been posting exclusive video versions of some of the episodes of Piecing It Together on there. And early access to Awesome Movie Year stuff, my music stuff, exclusive albums, all kinds of cool things. If you want to support the show, it is very much appreciated. You can sign up starting at $3 a month. It is patreon.com/bydavidrosen. Keep listening, but if you want to support the show, you could do it that way, and it is, again, very much appreciated. So let's get into a piece of music to close out the episode like we always do. And I'm in the middle of my 24 for 2024 series where I am releasing a new single on streaming on the first and third Friday of every month. And I'm going to play a preview of a song that's coming out later this year, somewhere around Halloween time, because it's a spooky one, which feels like a good fit for the First Omen. This is a track called The Fallen. And I think it's kind of self-explanatory about what this track is meant to feel like, what kind of vibe it's meant to evoke. So I hope you enjoy this track, The Fallen. It will be out as part of the 24 for 2024 series later this year. You can find all my music on Spotify as well as the 24 for 2024 playlist. I hope you enjoy it. We'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.